Hello, hello. How are you all today? Welcome, welcome, welcome. While our music is bringing us on in. Compliments of Xavier Brown. I love my song. That's my sunshine song. Intro to Conversations with Celena. Welcome, welcome, welcome. If this is your first time, I want to welcome you. I'm Celena, and this is Conversations with Celena, a special edition. If you follow me, you know that I have not been live in probably 3 weeks. OMG. Can you believe it? I was consistent and faithful going every day. Every day. I figured y'all needed a little bit of a break, but guess what? I'm back. And I'm so excited, if you can't tell, about my special guest today. And her name is Miss Mae Dixon. So I want you all to welcome her and say hello to her, follow her. She is doing some amazing things. So welcome, Miss Dixon. How are you today?
I am awesome.
Awesome.
With you, Celena.
Yes. So we talked about, I know you have so many different things that you're working on, and I can't wait for you to share with everyone. But today we have a specific topic. So do you want to talk about the other things that you have in the works, and then we roll into the domestic violence, or do you want to start with the domestic violence first?
Well, let's start with the domestic violence.
Okay.
Then we can maybe segue into it as we go along.
Perfect.
Okay.
That sounds good to me. So how did you decide to become an advocate for domestic violence?
Well, actually, I didn't decide. I was called,
Okay.
if you will, to the direct call was to take care of my ladies. That's the way it came to me. And
To take care of your ladies?
to take God's ladies, not my ladies, God's ladies.
I thought that's what you said. I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, because
Okay.
in my view, my ladies were the ladies that I worked with professionally.
Mm-hmm.
We would host, parties, retreats, that kind of thing, to empower each other. So when I got the call to do this, I had gone on a sabbatical for a year, and at the end of the year, it's like, okay, now tell me really what's going on, And so, uh, the message to me was, I want you to take care of my ladies. And I immediately, said, oh, I can do that. I'm used to doing that. And it's like, no, not those ladies. I want you to, take care of my ladies on the street, in jail, those who've been affected, by domestic violence. And I'm like, sorry, can't do that. Because you see, as a survivor, I blocked out over 20 years of my life. And
You blocked out over 20 years of your life?
yeah, my trauma, um, if you will, started. I can remember back as far as 5 years old of being submitted, to domestic violence, starting with abuse, the physical, from my mom, just trying to make sure that all of her children stayed on the straight and narrow. Um, and although I was deemed the oldest, um, and really tried to stay out of trouble, but her rule was, when one suffers, all of us suffer. So when they got beat, I got beat. And so it started there. And as we, grew older, then it was, men that she would bring in, being a single parent, rent rooms too. And while she's out working, then her daughters and probably some of the sons would have to fight off the advances and that kind of thing. And just the mental, emotional. And then I ran away not run away really, but strategically planned my exit from her home into a marriage that just created another form of abuse, the emotional and the mental part of it. And then it just segued on into that until about I'd say probably 7 years ago, um, that I was able to release, be released. But yeah, but um, when I got the call and I said, that I wasn't equipped to do that, and that's when he opened that curtain, if you will, and showed me what I had gone through. And he said, "Oh yeah, you're more than you're more than equipped." And so trusting him trusting God as I did and still do, I took on the challenge and uh, spent about a little over 10 years serving the women and men in the county jail every Saturday until the jail blew up, actually. And doing all those things, going into alleyways and all of that, just wherever the need was. I was committed to, because I saw them as my sisters. Okay, now I didn't necessarily feel that way at the very beginning, but in my argument um, with God, one of the main thing He said to me when was taking care of them. I saw that as me bringing them into my home, and He said, "Well, actually, you don't have anything that I didn't give you," and that statement just knocked me down, because in actuality, I didn't. So I committed myself from there to do whatever I could, to help another sister's life be better. And so our mission is to restore lives and and rebuild families. And so that's what we've done for over 20 years, actually.
And what's the name of it? The
The
organization?
organization is A Will and Way Inc. Yeah. He makes the way, I have the will.
Yep, I love it. A will and a way. So, I know today you were saying that, especially with the teens,
Mm-hmm.
the young people, how we need to encourage them because it starts young. And I was talking to someone right before we got on live, and he was telling me that I think it may have been a movie, but still the woman equated the beatings to love. And so when the man no longer was beating her, she didn't think that she was loved anymore. And so, we have a vicious cycle sometimes of going back because that's what we become accustomed to.
Mm-hmm.
But there are people out here ready and willing to help you get out of those situations. And like, it's basically, I am my sister's keeper, I am my brother's keeper, sort of thing is what you have going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And interesting that you would say that because I have uh, she's a friend now, but one of the ladies that we celebrated on last year during our celebration of life, she lives in not Nevada. Well, yeah, maybe it is Nevada, where she lives. But she was up until age 42, basically, strung out. She had been abused by her father. She had ended up having two children from her father. And the school system didn't do her justice. She was abused by the janitor, she says, and the principal. And she went to seek help from police officers, and they abused her as well. So she's and of course all of that led to drug abuse, the whole 9 yards. But she was saying today how the Lord blessed her with this man who she calls Papa. And if anyone who's on here that is a friend on my Facebook page has probably read some of her stories because I share them. That's part of her healing process. But she talked about how when she met this man that she calls Papa, he was also recovering drug addict. Um, but something clicked between the two of them, and when he would treat her with such love and care that she thought something was wrong with him because her idea of love was to be raped, to be beaten, to be called out for name, all of these things. And it wasn't until she had the courage to have that conversation with him that she realized that she had the wrong idea. And to
Mm-hmm.
this day, they've been together for like 13 years, and she shows us. She don't just talk about it, but she does videos, and she show us how he cares for her. And be honest with you, it is such a beautiful, beautiful um, love story, because you don't see that a lot in the African American communities. But just the way that both of them were broken, but God put them together to heal each other. And so, we look at domestic violence as being a horrible thing, and it is, but there's some beauty that comes out of it when we allow ourselves to heal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
And sometimes that takes a
a lot.
long time. Mm-hmm.
It could take a lifetime. Yeah.
It could take a lifetime. It probably does take a lifetime
Hmm.
too.
Yeah. For a lot of people. And that's, and when I
Because
say,
there's still triggers, even
yeah.
when you feel like you've done all the forgiving that you can do and
Hmm.
you're living your life the best way that you know how, there are triggers. I was triggered like 3 days ago and I didn't really know what to do, but I kept it together until I got to the car and had myself a moment.
Hmm.
And then I came on back, but there are definitely triggers.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I don't think you ever get beyond that point. People say forgive and forget. You can forgive, but the forgetting is so difficult because uh, life perpetuates itself. And where it may not happen to you directly, you can empathize with another sister or brother, because men are abused as well. So you can see a situation or hear about a situation with someone else that will resonate with you, because this happened to me, or a portion of it happened to me. And that's when we have to just take a breath, you know, and accept that it happened, but it doesn't have to define who I am.
And with you mentioning about the forgetting part,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if ironic is the word, but the things that you want to remember, your happy memories, in the process of blocking out those traumatic experiences, because you remember, but there are a lot of things that your mind won't let you remember, all the time. Again, it'll come back to your memory in bits and pieces, but like when you want to remember things about your children and your vacation and your childhood, all of that for me seems to be just wiped out
Yeah.
because of the traumatic experiences and trying to make it, just suppressing them, I guess, just trying to get through that day, just trying to get through that week. And people will be like, "You don't remember?" I don't remember. And so I wish that we could forget what we wanted to forget and remember those happy things so that it will be easier to heal. But for
Mm-hmm.
whatever reason, the negative seems to just take over a lot of times if you don't take control of your thoughts and just say, I'm focusing on the good, I'm
Mm-hmm.
focusing on the good, but the bad is there, like constantly telling you that you're not good enough, or you're not enough. And look at what happened to you. Nobody cares about you. All those little that
Absolutely.
goes on in your head, and knowing that they've broken you down, telling you that you're not good enough, nobody else is going to want you, different things like that,
Mm-hmm.
to crush your spirit. So I do believe it takes a lifetime, and I wish that we could forget the traumatic experiences and remember those happy times. That's what I wish.
Well, I will say this. Um, that happened to me, and that even to this day, my sister, my younger sister, has to remind me or just share with me situations
Stories.
as a child,
Mm-hmm.
that it's not there anymore, because when there's so much bad, It overshadows the
Ooh, it
good uh,
overshadows.
until we accept that what happened was real.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But here again, it does not have to define who we are today. And yes, it's difficult. It's really difficult. I had to do a lot of work on me with the help of therapists, with the help of God. Okay. And I pray that for God to put people in my life to help me to be able to move forward, so that even though I didn't remember a lot of the good things, what did happen was I was able to create new good things and
Mm-hmm.
appreciate those things that did happen. Every now and again, even today, a memory will or flashback will come to me, and then I try to build upon that memory. But sometimes I think God is telling us, sometimes we have to wipe the slate clean and then start over, because if we want to, you can't have one without the other. If we want to have the good, then we're going to automatically keep having to bring up the bad. Keep, even though we don't realize that that's what we're doing. But if we want to keep that book open, then we're going to have to eat the whole book. Sometimes we have to just close the book, close the chapter, say, okay, these things happened there. Yeah, they're going to come back, because you're going to encounter people, past friends or whatnot, who remembers our lives together, and they'll share, you remember this, but whatever happened with you and them happened with that other person too. Okay. So naturally, all of that keeps coming back to us as we do this. But when we make an intention, okay, to release that person and everything that's attributed to that person, a time will come when we can think about that person, see that person, and it doesn't even
Didn't even
affect us
phase you.
the same way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You can actually learn to love them, godly love. Okay, it's a
This
process.
is true.
It's a process, but it happens. And so my life has been about making new memories, and God has blessed me with grandchildren and great grandchildren, and I live through them now. So all those memories that I did have, that I don't remember, it's okay. Now I'm a person that loves to take pictures. Okay. And where some people, have a journal, I have journals, but I have thousands and thousands of photographs. Anything that I deem important, okay, I take a picture. And so that way I can go back, and see. My one regret is that I only knew my father for a very short time of my life. And never took a picture of him or with him. So I have no recollection really of even what he looks like. Okay. I never met any of his family. So there's a whole other half of me who is incomplete, because I don't know that history, but I
Wow.
don't let it hold me back. Okay.
Exactly.
So, but when we're talking still about the effects of domestic violence, because,
Mm-hmm.
you know, these are the real things that happen. Even when most people, when we look at the person who abused us, or persons, all we can
Plural.
see is the bad.
Plural.
Yeah, all we can see is the bad. But what I've also learned is that, uh, to be able to really understand, I'm trying to word this properly, to be able to really understand, as best we can, the what happened. You have to really try and understand that person. What was their backstory? Where did they come from? What did they experience? And that helps us to be able to forgive, you know, and to move on. Because what you'll find is that the majority of those who are abusers have been abused. And
Yeah,
if
and you
it's
don't know
not
their
a
story. And chances are, I mean, unless you're close enough to them to find out their stories, sometimes you'll never know their background or, where it stemmed from.
right.
But I do know that you said, what'd you say? You said that with the help of therapy and with the help of God. So for the young people, my air conditioner just dropped down on me. For the young people that we're trying to reach and speak to on today, there's nothing wrong with talking to someone. Actually, that's a good thing. And
Yeah.
for so many years, that hadn't been talked about. And if it was, there was this stigma on it that you're crazy if you go and talk to someone.
Mm-hmm.
Or, everyone is not brought up in a home where there's the Bible and they're teaching about God and different things like that. So you don't have, I mean, where do you go? You don't have a therapist, you don't have anything to believe in. And so you're just left. And a lot of people will turn to drugs and alcohol and food and sex and, just anything to try to numb those pains.
Right. Yeah. And religion has gained such a bad name anymore. Um, and even with that, I think I think we have to understand that it goes beyond religion, and we're really dealing with the Holy Spirit. Okay, and that Holy Spirit lives within us. And so, even if, and people think I'm crazy a lot of times because they'll see me talking and they don't see anybody. Now it's a little better, because you've got the earpieces and all this stuff, so you don't look quite as crazy. But the Holy Spirit is a person, it's God that lives within us, and it gives us someone that we can talk to at any time. Okay. And the good part about it is the Spirit talks back. May not be for some as audible as you and I are talking, uh, but there's a whisper. But in order to receive that, you have to be still. You have to uh, find quiet time in order to do that. And a lot of people are afraid when they say the Holy Spirit, that sounds like the devil. Well, there is a devil, okay? And that's that person that tells us to do these bad things. But the Holy Spirit is the person that protects us, that gives us wisdom to make good decisions when, that other person is telling us to make bad decisions. As far as the therapy is concerned, it starts with just talking. Okay. It starts with, um, when a person that's been abused, number one, is embarrassed. Okay. And they don't want to share, they don't want to tell anybody. But we have to have someone that we feel close enough to that we can talk about it. And once you start to verbalize it, it becomes
Hmm.
easier, to share with other people. A good therapist will be a blessing in your life. Okay. But, there are bad ones out there too. But a good therapist can be a tremendous blessing and give us the opportunity to talk about it. For instance, with my friend that I was telling you about earlier, um, the fact that she can share her story every time is bringing more healing to her. As part of A Will and Way, we do a program called Women Telling Our Story. And that was birthed from my own experience of finally having the courage, to do that. But I wasn't able to do that until after the sabbatical, when when I was able to really understand why I had gone through all of the things that I'd gone through. And it was a coping mechanism to be able to just talk, first of all, in just small groups with very close friends. But then that grew. So now we're talking about it on Zoom. We're talking about it right here. Okay.
Hmm.
And it is healing. The more that we hold things in, the more detrimental they are to us mentally, physically, and psychological. I remember when I went through my divorce about 7 years ago. I was completely broken because it was an horrific experience. I was totally broken to the point that it affected me mind, body, spirit, and physically. I mean, I had aches and pains, and I went through to doctors and got just about every test you can take, to try to figure out,
What
what
was
was
going on?
happening to him,
Mm-hmm.
and then once, of course, after they said, well, we don't find anything wrong, then I had to go inside, okay, there's something going on here, God, tell me what it is. And so then I found that the more I talk about it, not only does it help, but it releases the shame, because when you've been abused, you feel responsible. So I had to do something, you know, to bring this upon myself. But in reality, you don't have to do anything. You know,
Nothing.
it's just uh, a season. It's just you're being that person at that time, and we don't know how we're chosen, except God allows it to happen so that He can use it, at a later point to help someone else, such as with a will and way, in other organizations where people are actually, working, uh, doing kingdom work from the heart and not so much for the dollar, to impact the lives of others.
So I just want to chime in right there because you said something that is hard for a lot of people to accept, that God allows it to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I know we're talking about therapy to help, we're talking about God to help. But when you're speaking to someone, especially the youth or anyone, that you're trying to say, you pray to God, but you're saying that God allows this, that is really kind of difficult for a young person or people to understand what that actually means. Is God really allowing this to happen to people?
Okay, think about it. God is all powerful. Okay, right now we're dealing with COVID. Now we're dealing with a new strain of COVID. All right, so if there wasn't a means of all of us gaining something, okay, out of this horrific epidemic, then He would have put a stop to it at the very beginning. Okay, that's not to say he orchestrated it or he did it. He could have stopped it, but he didn't. Okay, he hasn't as of yet, and that's because um, there's so many people who needs to be strengthened. Yeah, we've lost a lot of people. Okay, but what we have to know is that um, there are consequences, and we're getting a lot deeper than I think what I intended to. But
Well,
you know,
no,
it,
I
it
didn't mean for you to go deep, but just briefly, because we're trying to get people to understand how to deal with the domestic violence, because it does negatively affect us.
mhm.
And we just want to encourage people, young, old, does not matter, gender, female, male, to seek help if you've been abused or if you know someone that's being abused. That's really what it's about. But I just wanted to, I thought you were going to be able to, say, I don't know
Sorry, I'm
what, but,
right about
just
I
a
know
little
what
bit of
you say.
a snippet of something that would encourage, because it really is hard to understand this, especially whenever you're in it and you're hurting and you're abused and you're broken. You got bones, not just broken on the inside, but you got eye hanging out and bones broken behind some domestic violence incident. And yes, we have free will. We may have put ourselves in that position. We may not have even put ourselves in that position to be caught up in a situation. But I didn't mean for you to, I know that's not what we're supposed to be, but it's when you say it, it triggered me to say, okay, what's a way for us to reassure people that there's hope in the middle of this type of situation? So
It's all about relationship. It truly is all about relationship. We can exist in our own being. In other words, making our own decisions based on what we know personally, or we can exist believing that there is a higher power, that there is someone who is standing ready to protect and provide, and who we can call upon, and no matter what the situation is. Oftentimes, when we're in domestic violence situations, we choose, honestly, we choose to stay, okay? Um, for whatever reason, if shame or a need, financial need,
We
emotional need.
stay, we go back and
Yeah,
go back
I've
again.
done it all. I've done it all.
Yeah, I
And
know.
till we get it in our heads that you don't have to do this, okay? Because that voice is always speaking to us. That voice is always saying to us, I got you. But until we're ready to hear it and trust it, and
I
that's
just
really,
think, and again, based on what you said earlier, I don't think that people are silent and still long enough to hear a voice, so
mhm.
they don't know what to do.
And that's where the
I'm going to
pandemic.
say we, because I did not know what to do for a season. People can kind of tell you, I don't know why you do that, or if I were you, I would do, yeah, right. You find out later that they're taking more than what you're taking, but people will
Mm-hmm.
make you feel like shame. They'll add to the shame versus try and comfort you and say, let's try to get you some help. What can we do to get you out of this situation? And a lot of times, you're right. We're trying to hold on to make it work because of, like you said, children, finances, for whatever reason, we're trying to hang in there and make it work.
Yeah. Yep.
Miss Abigail say, good evening, driving, but listening. Fear was a factor for me, but God. Thank you, Miss Abigail.
Amen. Yeah, sometimes it takes us, sometimes it takes some of us longer than others, but the
Mhm.
key is to finally be free.
Finally free.
Be free,
Yes.
but don't be free by yourself. That's when and that is the whole, I think, in a nutshell, uh, is that when you're free, then automatically it opens you up to a responsibility to help others to be free.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't necessarily have to be domestic violence. It could be some other, something else, because pain is pain. Okay. Uh, and we think that we're not equipped, that we're not prepared. I'm still too weak to go to reach out to someone else, but I can tell you from experience working
What
with.
you say, you will say that. What can I do? Shucks, I'm still trying to recover myself.
And see, that's it. That's what most people say. Yeah. But the full healing comes in helping others to heal. And that's where we miss the mark as a nation. If we're all trying to take care of self, and we weren't intended to do that. We are a collective, and we are to help one another in whatever aspect that's needed. One might need money, okay? One might need some assistance in transportation. One might need a job. I needed all of that, okay? And God put someone for each of those in my life to help
I'm
me.
telling you, and sometimes it's not right when we think, you're like, I need some help, but help really is on the way. When people used to say that, I'm like, how long I've been hearing help is on the way, help is on the way. But just in this season alone, with me having 2 kids going off to college, if it's just an encouraging word, that's help. If it's
Mm-hmm.
a financial donation or gift that you gave one of them, that is a help. So help really is on the way, but we have to recognize it when it comes, because we're looking for help to come from this direction. We're
Mm-hmm.
looking for help to come from these people. But sometimes, a lot of times, you're looking in the wrong direction. Your help is going to come from someone else. Your help is going to come from a different direction, but you truly are being helped in different ways. And I know for myself, like I said, whether it's a word of encouragement, because anybody close to me, they know they've been had to speak a word over me. They've been having to say, sunshine, come on now, you know. And I'm like, oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Because that feeling like, are you enough, or are you in a place to be able to help someone else? And the answer is yes. We all can help someone else. We all can learn from one another if given the opportunity. It's just that ability and willingness to work together. Are you going to work together with this person and that person? Stop turning up your nose at people and see what you can do together, you know?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that brings me to this new initiative that I've been called to do, which is called GEYM, GEYM, Gentlemen
There you go,
Empowering
gentlemen
Young Men.
empowerment.
And here again, I felt totally unequipped to do this because, first of all, I have this thing, with me, and I have a lot of male friends, that have was very supportive of me, believe it or not, when I was going through my situations, I should say. I've been married twice, okay, both domestic violence in one way or another, okay. But God had always put somebody there, that was in a position to help. And when I accepted, this new initiative, and I called on all of my old friends, my male friends, okay, I have this thing, and I need some men of integrity
To come
to
on.
come and help to mentor these young boys. Not one of them said yes, and that hurt me. Okay, but God opened another door, and what I
Mhm.
got out of that was, you know, I gave you the call, but I'm gonna provide everything that you need. So you just have to be patient, work with me here, and that's where I am. And truly, He did supply me with a great team of men. None of them I've met personally from around the country, um, because it's a nationwide program. Look at God, all this stuff. And to do that, they had to train me. They had to help me to think like men. Okay. What
Oh
I've
Lord.
learned, yes, what I've learned, and look, it was my younger son who introduced me to Clubhouse, which is where all these men just kind of showed up. Okay. Because I put out a request. Uh, what I learned was our men are so insecure because of their own trauma and situations that they don't feel qualified to try to train someone else. That's why we have a lot of single um, mothering uh, households, okay? Because they weren't trained to be, a lot of our men were not trained to be fathers. They were not trained, to help other people. Okay. Now, part of that came from slavery. Okay. And it carried on into the households, domestic violence. I've been doing a series of sessions on Clubhouse for what started out to be for single mothers. Each time I would open the session, instead of the single mothers being able to speak, the men would come into the room
And take
and
over.
take over. Okay. Truly take over. And they would pour out of their hearts the pain, that resulted from not having their father in their lives, and watching their mothers struggle, and the impact of that, and how it affected them. So a lot of them are very fearful that they're not, capable of being a good role model for anybody, even though they've been successful. You know,
Mm-hmm.
they're not. So last week, one of my team, he said, "Okay, Miss May," they call me Miss May. Let me just explain something to you. He said, "You're trying to get men to mentor the younger men, but they themselves need mentoring." So, and here again, it's like, okay, now God, I don't know what you're up to.
What
Okay.
you want me to do?
I don't know what you're up to, but I hear you. I hear, and so we're doing all that we can. We still
Mhm.
have the single moms, a lot of them who has expressed a need, for mentors for their uh, teenagers and young adults, and
Yes,
you know
yes, I need it.
yeah, so it's a process of patience, okay, which is
Mhm.
difficult for me because I want everything to happen overnight, but I'm
Of
learning that
course we do.
I
You're
have
not
to.
alone. You're not the only one that's
I don't
wanting
want
it to
anything.
happen. Chop, chop, chop.
Yeah,
We ready. We think we ready
yeah,
anyway, because if
yeah.
it came chop, 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 like we're saying, we might
Hmm.
not be prepared like
Hmm.
we think.
Yeah, and it just hurts my heart to see so much pain,
Oh
you know,
my God,
and
yes.
it truly does. But and all of this here again is because it's time. That's the only way I could see it. Everything I think that has happened over the past year and a half has propelled us into a place of healing if we allow it to. Okay, just the fact that so many people ran to Clubhouse, okay, as a means of socialism, um, and once they got there, they found something different. Okay, um, when I look at it, it's like it's mind-boggling, to a certain degree. If you don't know the Holy Spirit, if you don't have that relationship to understand what is happening for us, some of them think they were on they went there for one thing and found something else. You know, there's a lot of foolishness that goes on there, but there's a lot of healing as well.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
that has really helped me to be able to accomplish, all that we have thus far, as it relates to the mentoring part. We'll work with the men, get them ready, uh, to take on the responsibility of helping to raise our younger men.
That's
It's a
awesome.
process. It's
That
a
is so
process.
needed. Yeah, especially if the men that you're asking, because I asked a young man to reach out to my son that's going off to college, and I
Mhm.
have not heard back from him. We called once again and we texted once, and I said, okay, well, I'm going to take that as you're not the one that needs to speak to my child. I
Yeah,
was maybe going out of term, but it's okay.
yeah.
God's gonna send somebody.
Yeah. I don't think it's that they don't want to. They don't want it to say no to you. Okay. They don't want to say no to me. They'll come and they'll say, "Oh yeah, I want to do this. I want to do," and then they disappear. Okay,
Disappear.
because they're not ready within themselves. And that's something that has to be worked out between them and their higher power. Their with God.
Hmm.
It's nothing that we can do other than have an open forum such as what we do now. We do our mentoring takes place on Clubhouse because that's where they are, and we will expand to Zoom for our teenagers. But and then we'll do group. We're not leaving the teens out. We're starting some sessions for the teens on Zoom, so that they would be able to get a lot of the same information, be able to dialogue with one another, because that's where the healing comes in. These men are able to talk, you know, to one another. They tell their story and then they encourage each other. And that's
Hmm.
that's what it's all about. And it's not costing anybody anything but some time. We're not paying a therapist. Um, we're just loving on each other and giving each other the power back, if you will. Um, so anyway, probably said more than I should have about that, but it's a
No.
passion.
Uh-uh. No, indeed. I love it. So I know that you have the mentoring program and then the will and way. Is there anything else that I didn't put up on the screen that I need to?
um, no, I think. Oh, I do have a business that, of course, I don't promote because I'm doing ministry for the most part, but I am an author. I have written several books, some manuals, and one of my books is The Secret Code of Girls, um, and it's which I just happen to have right here. Um, can be purchased on Amazon, by the way. But this one is empowering girls to mature into confident women. I'm working on a book for our young men now that I'm headed in that direction. And my second book is Restored by Grace, which is part of my testimony, but it's more in line with all of the wisdom that I have gained while working with individuals of a will and way, because we've had quite a journey through that organization. I mean, we've run the gamut from having transition home, where we would receive women right out of jail, help them to get whatever they needed, you know, get their certificates so that they can feel good about themselves going into the field of work that they want to, restoring them with their families, helping them to get their children back. I've had a a large volume of volunteers to help in that aspect, to work with the women and their children in whatever capacity they needed. We've had a transition center when we outgrew the transition home. God blessed us with a transition center where we were able to take in both men and women, not to live, but to provide training, life skills, whatever their needs were, food, clothing, helping them to find shelter and all of that kind of stuff. So, and then just some of the stories that they shared, um, their experiences. So those things are in the book Restored by Grace. Um, and I do some life coaching. Uh, I call it transitional coaching because, you know, it's about meeting people wherever they are and then helping them to get to where they want to be. But I think that's pretty much it.
So, if someone wanted to contact you, what is the way that you want to share? I know that you're not local, so I can't just jump over and be like, "What you doing in here, Miss May, today?" No, I can't do that. I have to meet you on Clubhouse. Speaking
Right.
of that, we're gonna be on Clubhouse together. Did we put our date in the
we didn't
calendar?
we didn't put our dates. No, we're going to be on Clubhouse together, and we're planning our next Women Telling Our Story in for September. So we're going to be there together with some other ladies who have participated in our what's called the Grace Room. That's my little space on Clubhouse, um, where we talk about everything to do with life.
Mhm.
It's open to anyone who has a means to impact others. They can either DM me. I learned that term. DM me on
Right,
Instagram.
right. Did you get my DM? I DM'd you. Did you get it?
I did. Yep.
I
You
don't
can
about know how to work some of that stuff. And then when you call your children, I don't know. Oh my
Yeah.
God. You heard them, you witnessed that.
Yes, indeed. But the easiest way is through.
This as well. Because it's just it helps others, you know.
Mhm,
When
mhm.
you hear it, when you speak it, it helps you. And as others hear it, it also helps them. So it's been a blessing for me.
Well, good. I'm glad. Do I have time to touch on the teens? For,
Hey, Miss V. Yes, go ahead.
okay. Um, I think one of the reasons that God gave me the challenge of reaching our teens is because of everything that's happening in our country, especially with the gun violence, suicide. The suicide rates are up ridiculously high since COVID. amongst our teens. The domestic violence, of course, has escalated in that regard as well. But domestic violence and gun violence and all that stuff works together. Um, but our young people are hurting in such a terrible way, and
Mm-hmm.
so many of them have little to no guidance. The number of teens that are living on the street, okay, is it's ridiculous with a country that's supposed to have so much wealth, and yet they're suffering tremendously. Um, so when we talk about domestic violence and how it affects our children, what we fail to realize is that if mom is engaged in a domestic violence situation, then our children, um, her children, are a part of that. And although the trauma is so great for the mom that she doesn't have time to think of anything but survival for the children,
Right. Mm-hmm.
and so the child, on the other hand, is looking at all of this, especially if it's a male child, looking at all of these things happening and feeling helpless. That affects them as they grow older. And we don't realize it um, until something happens, as we said earlier, to trigger, okay,
Mm-hmm.
that situation. And they end up either being violent to another female, or they're violent to other men, which oftentimes leaves them either uh, in, incarcerated, on drugs, or deceased. And we don't need any of those statistics anymore. So it's important for us to understand that our children, though they may be small, my son was my oldest son was 4 years old when I finally got the courage to leave his dad. Uh, the the younger son was too young to even know anything about it, but I've watched them grow, and I've seen the difference that it's made in their lives. Okay, and I'm not saying that their father was a bad man. He loved all of us, but he had issues. Okay, and that's the situation with most of the men in our lives, and when they mistreat us, we look at it as being cruel and evil and wicked, and some of them are. But for the most part, I'm venturing to say that we're looking at someone who has a mental deficiency. Okay, we'll just call it that, a mental deficiency. And unless that's corrected at some point, it just perpetuates itself. What our children see is what our children do. What our children hear is what our children hear. So we have to be careful to communicate with them at starting at a very young age, to help them to understand the whys of what they're seeing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and not wait until they get older and start acting out the things that they've seen, or acting out because of the things that they've seen. That's just very, very important.
Yeah. Whew. I know. This is you're telling my story. So um I don't know what to say other than I wish that some of those funds could be transferred that you're talking about, because there's no reason why we should have so many people on the street and homeless and
Mm-hmm.
in situations where they feel like they can't get out of. Because the longer you feel hopeless and no way out, the longer the children are subjected to that behavior. And then it just turns into another vicious cycle. And so um, it's just, I don't even know what to say.
Yeah,
Mm-mm.
it's heavy, and
It's heavy.
but it's real when you see teenagers that can kill each other with no remorse. Okay, um, that's because they're missing that element of love, of security. Uh,
And
yeah,
that's so sad. That is so sad.
yeah, and it only changes when we decide that we have to become involved. We have to risk this life that God has given us to enable others to live. And that's just the bottom line,
And
because
that's what people have done for years already anyway.
yeah, yeah, because our life is not ours anyway. We were placed here for a purpose. You know, we were born with a purpose, and until we actually live out that purpose, then we are going to struggle. And sometimes we don't look at it from that perspective, because we're looking for peace and we're looking for happiness, but you don't find that outside of yourself.
And that right there takes you years to realize too, because you're looking for other people to make you happy and other things to make you happy. And after a while, you're like, okay, I thought once I got this, I was going to be happy, but I'm not. Mm-hmm. I thought once I got this job that I was going to be happy, but that didn't work either. And so, you're right about that. And so it goes right back to what you said initially. You have to be still. You have to sit and be quiet and meditate so that you can know what you're supposed to do and be at peace with you, just you, fall in love with yourself, because you are enough, instead of running around here trying to make other people love you or prove to them why they should love you. And that you wasting a whole bunch of time and energy. Mm-hmm, and you just need to look inward and love yourself. I'm telling you, the people that's connected to me, they like, girl, I'm gonna need sunshine to come on. Come on back, sunshine. Because you will fall, if you're not careful, you will fall into that trap in your mind. Yeah. And it's not a nice place to be.
So true.
And I think that's just how people get involved in stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
And how do you stop that? How do you stop the little children that's coming up from not having that hole that you're talking about, that emptiness, that need for love? Or is it just something that's in us anyway? I mean, are we all feeling like we're missing something? I mean, because I feel like we all have some type of issue. We may not want to admit to it. We all have some type of an issue or issues. And it stems from something. Your childhood, abandonment, abuse, whatever it may be. I mean, but even if a child had the mother and father there in the house and loving and no abuse, would that child still feel like they're missing an element?
Yeah, I think that's
they do.
The way we are created, because
it is.
If we were 100, okay, if we were 100, then we would need God. Okay, if we were 100, then we would be all inclusive within ourselves. So you'd have all these pockets, if you will, but nobody really coming together, because I got mine. I don't need you. I got mine. And that's not the way we're created. We are created to need something from each other. None of us are complete. None of us are complete. And therefore, we have to, if we take the time, I think, if we wait, keywords, if we wait on the right person, okay, if we wait on the right situations, because there's seasons that we deal with. If we wait and let it happen organically versus making things happen, I think we would be in a better place. Yeah, you're going to have families where it seems as though everybody is whole. Everybody loves each other and all that, and then there's that one child that goes outside of the norm. Okay, but pay attention to that one child that goes out, and then you ask the questions, why? What's the message here? Okay, what's the story that we need to gain from this situation? Because generally, if when that happens, there's a reason, and sometimes that child just may be crying out for attention because, okay, a pastor's child. If you pay attention to many children whose parents are in the ministry, okay, those are the very children that is going to scream the loudest for attention because the parents are too busy taking care of other people. Okay. So no matter how much that child may have, so it seems, it doesn't have the one thing that it needs to make them feel worthy, to feel whole. And so therefore they feel abandoned, neglected, unloved, they're insecure, they get into drugs or they seek um, fulfillment somewhere. You hear about it, you read about it, all over the place about, how they, try to disrespect the family, sometimes intentionally just to get attention, sometimes not. Okay. But it doesn't matter. We have to be open and we have to start paying attention to our children. And it doesn't have to be your child, it could be a neighbor's child. Okay. It could be someone in the workplace. Um, but we all need each other, and we all have to work together in order to eliminate a lot of the ills that is happening within our country. And that's what we're here for. We are God's hands, his feet, his mouth, okay, his eyes. We can relate. They can relate to us. You mentioned earlier, how do our teens, um, how do they relate and understand who God is and why God, does what God does? Well, we are their representative of God, and we could either show them uh, the right way or the best way, you know, to live, or we can show them, the adverse, or we can do nothing and just let them learn on their own, which is what a lot of them are doing now in the schools, in the communities, wherever. Even in the prisons, we have so many children that they don't belong in prison. Okay, but that's the only place that can contain them. Many of them are still alive because they're in prison. All right, so I was warned that that might happen. So until she comes back, I'm just, I feel very passionate about our people, our young people specifically. There you are. And my prayer is that we as a people can come together and do what we can, no matter how small the gesture may be. If you can't give the time to help an organization that is trying to do the work, then give some dollars, okay? Because a lot, especially the smaller organizations, those who are working in the grassroots, you know, nobody really pays them attention. Everybody wants to contribute to the big name organizations, and the big name organizations are, um, spending more money on salaries and other things, and the people that need it the most are being ignored. So if you can't give time, then give some of your other resources. If you have a skill, and that's anyone, if you have a skill that will help another person to grow, then do it. Give it away. Give it away
Mm-hmm.
because God gave you life, and we are responsible to help other people to live the best that they can live.
The best that they can live in a peaceful, safe environment.
Absolutely.
Yes. And baby, if we could do that, oh my goodness. Just, woo, it's too many. It's too many. It's happened too often. And when you hear people's stories and testimonies, my mouth just falls open because some people I never knew that they experienced what they experienced because we cover for abusers for way too long. We don't say anything, we hide it, and then we tell our story years later and you're like, you went through that? I never knew that. So um it just comes a time it just gotta stop. It just has to stop.
Yeah. And it only stops when we talk about it. When we start being open um, and sharing, I, what is it? Tell the truth and shame the devil.
Tell the truth and shame the devil.
Until we start doing more of that, then it just keeps on in perpetuity. Why would someone need to change if they could
There's
continue
no
to do?
consequences. There's no consequence. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm control. It's a control mechanism. I'm controlling this
absolutely,
situation. So um,
absolutely.
I I have people that have come forth and shared, and so I do want to have another segment, with women or men that are willing to come forth and talk. It does happen to men, but that's definitely not talked about as much. It's more
But they're
so
ready to
women.
talk.
Hmm?
They're ready to talk.
They're ready to talk. You're right about that. There are more that's coming forth about abuse that they have also suffered, and so I'm looking forward to having that panel on. So maybe you can come back and have another conversation with several other people, and we can talk about it. If
Absolutely.
you say that's what's going to make the change, we just keep on talking and keep on doing and keep
Hmm.
on sharing.
That'll do it.
Yes, ma'am. Well, I enjoyed it.
Same here.
Yes, and so we'll have to announce when we'll be on Clubhouse
Hmm.
together and come up with our topic. So that will definitely be exciting. And there's
Absolutely.
the information on the screen if you would like to reach Miss Mae Dixon. She has so many different things that is going on, a will and way, and also the other one, which was Gentlemen Empowering Young Men, right?
Hmm. Correct.
That's the GEM program.
Right.
And then she's also an author. And what were the name of those two books?
Um, Restored
I
by
got
Grace, A Journey Like No
Restored
Other.
by Grace and The Secret Code of Girls.
Hmm.
Yes. So there we go. You got it, girl. Okay. So info at awillandway.org.
Correct.
I want to say a will and a way because you're so used to saying a will and a way. So I have
Right.
to make sure I slow down. Info at awillandway.org. And that is how you can reach Miss Mae. And thank you so much for coming on Conversations with Celena. I have not been live, and like I said, in I think 3 weeks. The last time I was live was the day that Miss Tricia and her mother, Miss Aquanetta, they were on here and we did the Ray of Sunshine for April and May, and they were both recipients of that. But I have not, and I don't even know what to say about myself. I guess I need to ask anybody, did y'all miss me? See, I need to take a poll. Now, was I missed? Did y'all want me to come back, or were y'all cool with me not being live every single day? So maybe I will put a poll out there so I can find out. But thank you so much for joining me. I had a great time. Forgive me if I was bumping around. Today was truly an interesting day at work, but I survived, thank God. And we made it through
We made it through.
successfully.
Pleasant, pleasant, pleasant. Thank you.
It was. All right. Well, thank you so much. And thank y'all for joining Conversations with Celena once again. And keep it smiling, sunshine. Mwah.